I work in protecting the environment on the front line, whether it's standing on a blockade on a road or whether it's in a courtroom talking to legislators or regulators that provide permits for these oil companies. There's a lot of struggles going on, a lot of threats to Mother Earth, whether it's the oil drilling in the ocean, oil drilling on the land, oil pipelines going over the land, and the fracking. And these are polluting our waterways. And as we all may or may not know, water is the most precious medicine in the world. It's the first medicine given to us. And so every day we honor that by taking water as the first medicine when we get up in the day. The reason for that is because the water is the womb of the mother that we're born to. So that's the water that passes all the nutrients to us. So when we say that you're raping and killing our women with these corporation activities, we mean that you're poisoning the water, because we all drink the water. And our mothers, our children, our young women who are about to have children or may in the future, they're getting these pollutants into them. And that pollutes our baby's precious environment in the womb. So when you poison the womb of Mother Earth, you poison the womb of our children. And we always seek to protect 7 generations after us all their resources, because the water that's here today is not our water. We're borrowing it from our children who will come 7 generations after us. And so as a result of all this, all these native nations from all across the world, whether it's Europe, India, Africa, North America, South America, Central America, all over the world, they're coming together. Some of them are finding their roots again as native peoples. And we're uniting in that prayer for Mother Earth, the prayer for the protection of the 7 generations to come behind us. And we do that through prayer. And there are many, many different ceremonies we do for prayer. And the sun dance is just one of those ceremonies. Native peoples everywhere in the world are subsistence hunters and eaters. And so when you pollute the environment, people in the city won't necessarily see the pollution. But since we hunt off the land, live off the animals and the fish and the birds, everything that crawls and flies, the four-leggeds, the deer, the elk, the moose, the roots of our vegetables and our plants, our natural plants in the environment, all of that gets polluted, and we are the first ones. It's been referred to as we are the canary in the cage. We're the first ones. We're the alarm signal, and the message that all the native peoples, whether it's North American Eagle nations, whether it's South American Condor nations, is that we need to turn that tide. We need to go back to a more natural way, a more beautiful way. And so we're becoming the leaders of the world in protecting this land. Our ancestors fought for us to stay on this land. Our ancestors fought for us to live, and we're still here. We're still carrying their prayers. The ones that came 7 generations before us were praying for us now. And so we're upholding that respect for their prayers by continuing that prayers for those that come after us. One of the things I've noticed from being here is that we all have similar stories. Whether it's the Nimipu story of the creation of the Nimipu with the monster story, whether it's the Mamos from the Arwako, Wiwa, or the Kogi tribes with the lagoon monster that ate all the people, and one man was centered enough to come out. Whether it's the Witotos with their story of the crocodile monster that's trying to eat all of humanity, eat all of the animals. Whether it's the Lakota story with Eon, the stone who beat the eater. We all have the same stories, just different words. And we all have the same prayers, and that's what's important. So this time that we're in right now is a beautiful time because we're finding out. I mean, I'm from Idaho, and I'm down here at Atlantida, by Cali, Colombia, and I have the same prayer. I have the same fight for the environment, for the water, as these people here do. Drugs, alcoholism, suicides, domestic violence, sexual abuse, sexual trauma. These are common to all of us. And these are partly a result of the trauma of the genocide, of the slavery, of the colonialism of these European nations that came in and sought to destroy us. And that trauma, when they came in, was passed down from one generation to the next generation to the next, to where we are today. And so you have very beautiful, loving people that are coming together with a prayer. We're going back to identify that problem, whether it's suicide, alcoholism, or drugs. We're bringing it forward into today's world, into the present, to fix it. We're bringing the sexual abuse that's been passed down to us, the trauma from that sexual abuse, and we're fixing that. We're bringing the current situation with the pollution, and we're fighting back for Mother Earth. We're standing the line. We're holding the line, whether it's Dakota Access, Standing Rock, and then there's several fights down here in Colombia. India, they're fighting for their water. Africa, they're fighting to have water. But what we learned is, from all these stories, spiritually, they're still alive. The prayers are still working, and those prayers are going out from these animals and people that are monster food. And the prayers are being answered, and they're being saved. So the lesson we take from today is that no matter what they try to do to us, no matter how they try to kill us, no matter how they try to destroy our life sources, spiritually we hold that strength that our ancestors, our grandfathers, our grandmothers, abuelos, abuelas have given to us. And that is going to be what leads us out of this, physically, this hard time. No matter what country you live in, the colonialism has practically destroyed our way of life. And still we hold the humor to get us through that. Still we hold the prayers to get us through that. We hold the oral traditions, the histories, the land. This land holds the memories of our people. And we're doing everything that we can as a united front for the protection of Mother Earth. There are natural rights, human rights, but no one talks about Mother Earth rights, the first set of rules, set of protocols for how we act upon the land, except for the native peoples. We're the ones that are saying Mother Earth rights come first. And the reason for that is what you do to Mother Earth, you do to yourselves. You do to your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, your great-great-great, all the way down the line to the 7th generation ahead of you. And Panama was not a country until the colonizers came in and sponsored that uprising to create a new country. And before the country was even created, they created a treaty to pass the Panama Canal through, to cut Mother Earth, to cut North and South America and Central America apart. So we're here working with the elders to sew that up with our prayers, with our stories, with our love for each other, becoming one family. And that's what we've done here. Is we've become a family here. Maya, La Sierra, here at Atlantida. And I think that when we sew that up, when we become united, when we speak for our rights as human beings, that's what the colonizers understand, is that human rights. When we convey Mother Earth rights into human rights, that's when they finally start to understand. I don't think the governments are strong enough to go against these corporations because of the money, influence. so we stand up, we make those good prayers. And I think that's one of the things that's come out here at Atlantida, here at the Sundance here, is that those prayers are going out in a very, very good way. The similarities between our people has been just unbelievable. We have what's called a medicine dance or a jump dance in Idaho, and I had heard that it was here in Colombia. And the other night, one of our elders led us in a jump dance here. And so I told the elders back home, and the elders back home were they said they got chills up their spine and up their skin from the realization that we have these same practices, same spirituality. And I asked the elder here who led us, because the mamos had told me that they remembered us coming down here, and then 50 years later they'd go back up there for ceremony. We'd share this. And so now, with the realization that they had the jump dance, I've heard about it, but now I saw it, I participated in it. One of the things I asked him, this elder who led us, was, so now the question is, who taught who the ceremony, the medicine dance or the jump dance? And the thing he told me was, it doesn't matter who taught who, because we are one family, and we all have that same knowledge, whether it's the spirituality, whether it's the practices, whether it's living off the land, living off the natural flora and fauna that are here, whether it's offering prayers for the things that we gather when we hunt. We all have that commonality, whether it's the love for our children are the most sacred things on this earth. We wouldn't take polluted water from a pipeline and give it to our children. None of us would. But the people who live in the cities are so far removed from that they don't understand. They've lost that understanding that the land is what we live off of. Here, we had the most natural foods in the world. Colombian food is just amazing. If you go to my tribe, we hunt for all of our meat. We gather many of our roots and vegetables, our berries. It's the same way they do here. So we haven't lost that connection. Many parts of the connection, we've still maintained that. And so I'm thankful for having been here. I'm thankful for the elders having come here. Along with all the other native peoples in this world, they're going to continue that process of restoring the ties to Mother Earth, the ties to our spirituality that we all know in our heart, because we were all created by one supreme being. And so I think that when you look at all the pollution that's going on in the world today, the one thing you need to look at is that everywhere that's happening, there's a native people that's standing up to the influence of that pollution, the influence of the raping of Mother Earth, the raping of our children and our mothers, and sometimes even our men. We're standing up and saying there's Mother Earth rights that come first. And so I think that's what comes out of these ceremonies that we participate in, is that we are one family, one blood, one heart, one mind, one spirit, one body. And so I think that's probably a good explanation of what's happened here and what's going to continue happening as we continue to share, as we continue to visit condor nations, jaguar nations, hummingbird nation, condors, all going to the eagle nations up north. You have eagle nations coming down here. We're restoring that family, that we're all one. So they can split the land, but they can't split our hearts. And I think that's what comes out of this. When these native tribes across the world come together, India, the Arabian nations, the North American, Central and South American, the African nations, the outcome of coming together will be I think it'll be just this united front that has more power than these corporations. And the prayers that we carry, they might not be answered in my lifetime, but we make these prayers in a good way for our children. And something might happen in the future if we slow down enough to where our children live. Because in our mindset, we're not going to fight till every one of us is dead. We're going to keep our women and children protected because that's our future. And so my elders stopped the war so that they could recover the children who are in the middle of winter with no blankets, worn out moccasins, the horses had been stolen. Our warriors were wounded. Our chiefs were dead. We stopped because we wanted to continue to live through our children. And so you look at the fight of all of us coming together. We might not win the battle against corporations next week, but we might slow them down enough to where more of our children live and continue to go on. And that is a win. When our children can live, when our children can be healthy, that's the outcome of this, is that we will continue to live. Our children will live on with our prayers. Our great-great-great-great-grandchildren will live on with our prayers. When we have one battle for one nation, we can replicate that through our political, our legal, and our spiritual authority. We speak out with moral authority. That comes from our speaking for our children to come after us, the seventh generation. We speak out with our legal authority, because we've signed treaties that say this is what we want, this is what we're going to maintain, this is what we're going to keep, this is what we need to live. And that treaty gives us legal authority, because in almost every nation's formation, their constitution, creation of their colonial governments, they recognize that treaties were signed and that those will be honored. In the second clause of the 6th article of the Constitution of the United States, it states that treaties are the supreme law of the land. They wrote that. We've learned to use their words that they promised to our grandfathers, our grandmothers, all of our children, that they have to hold their word that they signed to, that their grandfathers signed to on behalf of them. So they have to hold that word, but our grandfathers signed under a principle called parens patriae, a legal term. And it means that the young ones at the time of the treaty signing couldn't sign. So the grandfather signed for him and on behalf of all of those who could not sign. My great-grandfather, Albert Moore, was alive when the treaties were signed. The grandfather's signatures on those treaties were on my behalf today. And the same thing goes all over the world. When the colonizers came in, the indigenous nations stated, these are what we want. These are what we're going to maintain. This is the land we need to live. And so that's the legal authority in their way of what they put onto paper and onto the human rights that speak to all of us. So we have a three-pronged attack: moral, spiritual, and legal authority to stand out here and say, you're not going to pollute Mother Earth. You're not going to put poison into my water or the water of the womb of our children. That's the outcome, is that the world will start to see that we have all rights as human beings. And when you don't respect those rights, you're no longer a human being. I think Native peoples that are still out here living off the land, provide that example for everything that we need to sustain the world. If you look at the United States, for example, 15% of the natural resources of the entire United States that are still left are controlled by less than 2% of the population, the indigenous tribes. We still hold pure lands, pure water, pure life sources, pure roots, plants. We control that, the forests. And because we control the rights to the land, the rights to live off the land, the rights to hunt, we maintain that in a good way. We manage it with the mind set for the 7 generations to come behind us. Coming together through these ceremonies to provide that prayer for the protection of this, for the enlightenment of everyone,